The StrIVe for the perfect fighting game release. Boy, fighting game developers have been searching for that for a long time, and I do think they continuously miss the mark every single time. But the perfect fighting game, like, the pieces are out there. The pieces are out there, but every fighting game that has released so far has always missed the mark in some capacity. Like, Tekken has no tutorial really at all whatsoever. I mean, Street Fighter 5 was the ultimate showcasing of just like a horrendous game that launched with literally nothing. And God, we fighting game players, we're the worst. We're the worst consumers ever because we will just buy whatever. And I get it. I get it. We want to pick up a new game. We want to diagnose it, figure it out. That's fun. Our friends are going to play it. We want to play with them. We don't want to be left out. There's going to be a tournament scene. We want to jump into that. It's like, I get it. But we're willing to just have so much shit thrown at us, and we're just going to take it no matter what it is. And Street Fighter 5 is the ultimate showcasing of that. Like, the people supported that game and bought that game despite the fact that it launched it in the most abysmal state I've ever seen a fighting game. And God, we're just terrible. But the perfect fighting game release is possible. It's conceivable. The perfect fighting game, has a great balance of high skill floor, high skill ceiling, good story mode, good single player content, great training mode features, everything a competitive player could want, inbuilt tournament settings, inbuilt, button select, character select, everything like that. Everything you could possibly want in a fighting game in one place, as opposed to scattered throughout every fighting game. And that's what we're going to talk about today. This is not a gameplay related video. This is going to be a video talking about what Guilty Gear StrIVe should strive to be. Wow. And we're going to use Guilty Gear Rev2 as a reference point. Because, honestly, I think Rev2 is pretty close to being a really, really good game. I think it misses the mark in a couple places, netcode being one of them. The netcode on PC works only because you can reduce the inherent input delay and then play. Then when you play online, it's like playing offline. But that's only against people that are pretty close to you, and that's not a good fix. That's not a good fix. But Xrd Rev2 is a good fighting game with a lot of great features in it that could be improved. So we're just going to go through the features of Rev2 and talk about how they could improve it, make things better. So before we go into battle, which has all sorts of stuff in it, let's talk about the story mode, the single player content. This is what your hardcore casuals and your casual players are going to eat up. And despite the fact that game developers keep missing the mark and thinking that they're going to be able to make a non-competitive player competitive, you can't do it. You just can't do it. Certain people, when they're buying Guilty Gear, they're not going to be thinking, I'm buying a fighting game to play with my friends. They're thinking, I'm buying a game. And they're looking for a good game. They're probably going to play against the CPU and nothing else. And there were plenty of fighting games back in the day that were built for that, like all of the Budokai games and stuff like that. And we should use those as a reference point. If you want the casual player base, this is what you need to focus on, is your single player content. Rev2's story mode is kind of just like an entire cutscene, which I think is a really poor way of doing it. There's also the arcade mode, which I believe is in battle. Yeah, it's arcade mode, and then they have the little episode mode, and then mob mode. This is all single player content. We're just going to talk about single player content as a whole. They need to make a really good single player content that tells you the story in an interactive way. They could do this like most really good, like you think of like the casual fighting games that weren't meant to be taken seriously. Again, like your Dragon Ball Budokais, Tenkaijis, your like Gundam Battle Assaults, your weird oddball games. They all had some sort of robust single player content, and the Budokai games are a good reference point. They made the single player content different from just versus mode. It added some new layer of the game to it. Like Budokai 2, there was like a board game aspect to it, where you could change how the matches were going to be played out. You would find new characters, you would power up your characters throughout it. Pincering people on the board would like increase like your strength for that fight, and there's all sorts of weird little things that made it an interesting experience. So for Guilty Gear Rev2, for Guilty Gear StrIVe, they could make it like they could make it a side-scrolling beat-em-up. They could make it like a Metroidvania game. They could make it a platformer if they wanted to. Allow you to fight people as you go through it. Do whatever you want. You find NPCs, you go from one place to another. Make it its own interesting, unique gaming experience that's different from the normal game, but still has a lot of elements to it. And like you could have like a level up system. You could have like a skill tree where like you can power up your Fafnir. Now Fafnir like guard breaks or it bounces off the wall now. Casual players would eat that up. They're like, oh yeah, I got my soul to max level now. Now I'm gonna go through single player with, you know, with my Kai. And you should absolutely make an interesting mode like that. Absolutely make that really good. Blend the story in a very cohesive way. Casual players will eat that up. And then you're gonna have all sorts of other modes. You gotta have all sorts of weird little modes, things like your Weapon Master mode from Soul Calibur 2, stuff like that. Odd, like weird challenges. Like, oh, you can this fight, the opponent only gets hurt by throws, and you got to beat it. And then doing those little challenges like unlocks things. Like in Rev 2, you got your little avatar thing. Make it so you go unlock things. You get currency or whatever. That doesn't unlock anything serious like characters or anything. Or even outfits. Just like little things for the game. That's fine. People eat that shit up. And while I am going to talk about the tutorial later, one of the things that I really think they should do for the single player mode of this game for StrIVe is I think, while you should also have a tutorial, I think they should turn the story mode into the tutorial. If it's a long campaign, like let's say it is like an adventure game, maybe it is like a weird like 2D platformer-esque like beat 'em up style game where you talk to NPCs and then you go to the next area and yada yada and you get into fights and all that jazz. Let's say you start out without all of the mechanics of the game and then you teach them as you go along. You'll eventually unlock instant blocks, you'll unlock Roman cancels. This would allow players to start with this very simple game, and as they expand they'll start to learn new skills, much like you would in a platformer and in other games. And then you'd also have the unique little skill tree I was talking about that would unlock new abilities for things that you could upgrade those mechanics to do different things. This would be huge for letting players slowly learn the game at their own pace. Maybe they wouldn't use all the mechanics even after they're all unlocked, but it would just make for a nice, simple experience that your casual player would really ease into. And when you get that hardcore casual player who's also competitive and is like creative and figuring things out, suddenly this player is probably going to be a little bit more interested after he finishes the story mode. And I think that's key. Single player content. If you want casual audience and the hardcore casual audience, which I don't think GG has much in terms of hardcore casual audience. It's very rare. Mostly made up of casuals and casual hardcores, I'd say. So yeah, single player content, very important. Lots of modes, oddball, just throw everything in there, man. There's so many things you could do. So that's single player content. And like, they did oddball things like the figure thing. That's a nice, honestly, this figure thing is really neat. It's a really neat little feature. I don't know if I ever use this. I do. I think I have jam kicking Dizzy in the face. This is a cool little mode. I'm glad that they put that in there. That's a fun mode. That's interesting. Fishing up things. It's anything art gallery. Pretty standard. It's really important to have as many single player modes as possible. But now that we are done with story, we'll move on. Just very quickly to settings. Honestly, just have all the good settings in there. All the sound settings, different language settings for characters, individual character language settings. If you want them in Japanese or English, that would be ideal. I mean, people should know how to do an options setting at this point. And let's start from the top with this. So online. Okay, first and foremost, yes. Guilty Gear StrIVe needs to have rollback netcode. It needs to have a really good rollback netcode. Oh boy, I would be so happy if our systems had it. So that's the first thing, of course, they need rollback netcode. Next thing, ranked match. This is one of the main reasons that Guilty Gear is dead, for the most part, when it comes to casual players, or players who are trying to get into Guilty Gear, is because when you play Guilty Gear, you play in the player match lobbies, which I love the player match lobbies, but for a new player, ranked matches and good matchmaking and everything like that really help you figure out how to learn the game, right? Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in a situation where you're not gonna be matched up against players of your skill level. So right now, if someone tries to pick up Rev2 and learn it, they're either gonna get matched up against someone who's they're gonna get matched up against someone like Marlin Pie, who's gonna just body them. They're gonna get matched up against me, or they're gonna get matched up against a nobody who's very new to the game, and they're not gonna be able to figure out who is who other than the little colored symbol next to the name. So good matchmaking is required. The lobby system that they're doing here, I think, is they don't really need this. I've never used it. I've never seen anyone use it. I think people in Japan use it. It's a fun little system that it's cool that it's there, but I just think it's kind of a wasteland. And just like, this isn't good to look at. All these little things. It's neat. I think you could do something with it, but that's not necessary. Now, player match lobbies are really good. I generally like our system versus lobby system. I do have some critiques with it. First off, I actually do think you should be able to go up 8 capacity. I think you should be able to go up to 16 or something like that. But I also think they need to have a tournament mode. I would love a tournament mode where you can create a bracket. You create a bracket, and then the person who's hosting the tournament gets to pick, okay, he puts each people into the bracket however he wants. So he makes the layout of the tournament, and then that person gets to pick, like, out of each of the brackets, he gets to pick which one, and it's like, okay, that fight starts now. Like, okay, now let's move to, like, winners finals. This match starts now, and then everyone starts spectating that match as it goes. That would be amazing for hosting online tournaments. It would be super fantastic. Even if you could get, like, commentary slots. If you could somehow have, like, voiceover just for the commentary slots, that would actually be, that'd be pretty fucking rad. But, I need to put a password on this so no one joins. How do I do that? It's been a while. It's good. Yeah, sure, fine. Okay, so the player match lobby is... Okay, yeah. I generally like the lobby system here. I like this training mode. Speaking of training mode, online training mode, that's a requirement. Absolutely have online training mode. There is technically, I think there is an online training mode for this game, but it's complete ass. Like, you can't actually do any training mode features with it. So, they need to have online training mode. Now, the lobby system, this is a personal quirk of mine. I like that you can set rematch. I like that you can set, like, winner stays, loser stays. Not that I've ever seen anyone do loser stays. That would be good for teaching a new player. I would like, as a personal peeve of mine, if you could, both players who are on a cabinet, if they can vote. And if they vote, I think you should be able to change this particular cabinet to a rematch cabinet, to a winner stays or a loser stays. I think you should absolutely be able to do that. That's a personal peeve of mine. Every time I lose in this fucking game, there's always someone behind me. I don't know what it is, but every time I lose in this game, there's someone behind me. It's bizarre. But for the most part, the lobby system that they have here, the player lobbies, is good. I'm sure they have their own ideas of how to improve it. There's a lot of things that they could do. Obviously, this one's a little buggy with the whole, like, as you line up, you start spectating immediately kind of thing. There's a lot of little bugs that I'm sure they're going to tweak out, and they're already fixed in other games that they've made since then. But the lobby system is generally good. Online modes, as I said, tournament mode, everything like that. Rematch should be right there. If stages are actually, like, impactful, there should be rematch with stage select as well, automatically built in. This is part of Soul Calibur 6 does that because stages obviously matter in that game. I don't know if stage sizes are going to be different in this game, but stage select might actually be a factor if there's wall breaks and stuff. But for the most part, yeah. The lobby system, they've generally gotten pretty good. I have no huge qualms with this lobby system. It's kind of fun. I enjoy the lobby system. Anything else I need to say about online? Like, there's so many good things they can put in online. Again, online training mode, good tournament mode, everything like that. Any sort of mode that they want to put in that's like team matches, that would be great too. A lot of interesting modes they could do. Arcade mode should be in there, versus mode should be in there, obviously. These are just standards. You don't have to work that hard on arcade mode, it takes 2 seconds. Now Dojo. Okay. Now we gotta talk tutorial. So So while I do think learning through the story mode would be a really good idea, if we're not going to do that route and we just want to make a really good tutorial, Guilty Gear Rev 2 actually did a pretty good job. What the hell is minigame? I don't know what that is. Actually did a pretty good job with the tutorial because you need to make your tutorial interesting, right? Original Xrd, it was Soul and Sin talking to each other and like including the story elements in it, which is nice. But this is interactive. See how this is interactive? And people like enjoy doing this because it's more interactive, it's fun. This is a pretty decent tutorial in and of itself, and it only teaches the basics, so it doesn't overflow you. A new player doesn't want to get bogged down by just info dump after info dump after info dump. Which is why I do think the story mode route is the best thing for the basic tutorial. But for an actual tutorial, you need to keep a player engaged. Now, I love tutorials. It's one of my favorite parts of video games as a whole. Some tutorials are stupidly long. I've played tutorials that are 2 hours long. You could make the argument that Final Fantasy X has a tutorial for the first like 30 hours. Which it does. And that's fine. But your average player, especially the ones that they're trying to teach who don't already know fighting games, they're going to want information, but they're going to want it very sparingly. In terms of learning the basics, you need to have things very basic. What am I doing here? Yay. This is a fun interactive tutorial that helps you a little bit, but one way that I would do a tutorial, and this would be really hard to do, I think, but I think it would be really well crafted, is you should have a tutorial where when you play it, you kind of just play a regular match, and then as things happen throughout the match, the opponent will teach you. It'll be like, oh, I see you got opened up by an overhead, you have to block that standing. And then it'll give like an example of how to deal with that specific situation. Or it's like, oh, I see you used a Roman cancel. Well, the Roman cancel actually does ba 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 ba. And it's like, okay, that's great. That's a fantastic thing. It's teach you as you learn, as you just play the game. So you could just play a match with tutorial on, and it will teach you things as they happen. And once something already happens once, it won't pop that thing up again. But then you can just play the game with a tutorial going in the background, and it will teach you as you play. That's a great idea for just simple tutorial routes. After the basic tutorial, yes. Combo challenges, obviously, always necessary. This is my favorite part of fighting games as a whole. I love combo challenges. Please make them difficult. Have practical ones, but have also have oddball ones. Combo challenges are normal. The mission mode is fantastic. The mission mode here is very, very good. But a little bit of an information dump. One of the things here, and you also have matchup specific ones, which are really nice. I think these should be expanded upon. And I'm going to cite a really fantastic idea, and that is user created content. As the game develops, people are going to create setups. And you're not going to know how to deal with specific setups. I think there should be a way to download, someone should be able to make this exact screen. They should be able to give you a system, like they should be able to program like Venom to do a specific ball setup and be like, yeah, this is really hard to deal with, here's how to deal with it, blah, blah, blah. And then you go into it like one of these challenges where you go in and it's like, you have to do this specific thing, and he can show you how to deal with this specific ball setup. That would be so good, because if the fighting game community has shown anything, it's that they're willing... I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay. If the fighting games community has shown anything, it's that they're willing to do all of the work when it comes to teaching people how to play. We've made so many detailed Wikipedia pages, and all the information is just scattered everywhere. Like, fighting game community is in like the worst place it's ever been right now in terms of getting information, because Twitter is a shit show for getting information. So much is lost on Twitter. It's out there for a day and then it's gone. Discord, also not great. It's okay, but it's pretty bad. I much prefer the era of detailed Wikipedia pages and just really good character guides that were consolidated on a website like a forum or something. It was a lot easier then. I can't jump. So yeah, I think user-created content would actually be a really good idea. I think Xrd actually has some user-created content in that you can download people's trials, combo trials. I've never done that. I don't know how you do it. I think it's a thing. Am I imagining that? I don't know if I I might be. But yeah, a general expansion on mission mode would be a really good idea, and user-created content would also be really good. It'd be fantastic. It'd be great. So, we're at the character select. So, first up, character select. Ability to choose stages, ability to choose music, ability to choose character, color very easily. In-game, button select, absolutely required. Always, it's in here. But not only button change, I think you should also have in-game button check. And Guilty Gear StrIVe actually has a really good system for this, because like in Xrd right now, you can see jams on screen. I think if I hit like a button, I don't know what button it would be, but if I hit a button, I think jam should just be like as if she was in a match. So if I press punched right now, she would do her standing P and everything like that. And then you could just see you're doing the button check without having to go in the match. I think that would be really good for tournament play. Super good for tournament play. Save so much time. I know people like to go into button checks anyway, but the more you could just make yourself really sure, okay, I'm good, that would be ideal. And then the fighting game training mode. Very important. Guilty Gear Rev2's training mode's a little dated, a little lacking. It has some good features in it, but it's definitely lacking some pizzazz. Like, in-game, being able to change characters quickly on the fly, that's really good. I appreciate that. The command list, the one we see in StrIVe is, it's super good. The only thing it's missing is in-game frame data. So, in-game frame data, give us a frame, hitbox viewer if possible. I don't need these, but your casual player would eventually want them. And they're nice to have. So their command list is already looking super stellar, so I don't need to talk about that. But this menu is a cluster. Like, it's so hard to figure out what it is I'm looking for. And, yeah, it's just not well organized. I want a really proper training mode with good organization, a lot of recording slots, a lot of recording slots, a lot of ways to play back the recording on wake up, on defense, on after one block, after two blocks, after such and such. Everything. Display combo recipe, that's what it is. It is in here. That's a good idea too. So combo recipe also. Good idea. Put that in the next one. That was a good idea. Just have the ability to do pretty much everything. I don't think I need to get too detailed on training mode options. StrIVe 5 has a really poor UI for its training mode, but it generally is pretty good in terms of what it's trying to do. Just a lot of options. Like this training mode, for instance, is lacking the ability to do things on wake up and after blocking. So you kind of have to be a little jank with it, which I'm used to doing, but at the same time, it would be great not to have to do that. Input lag is also important, although if they have rollback not code, you don't need this. So here's open. There's a lot of things that need to be added to training mode, and everything that I'm adding in training mode should also be in online training mode. Very, very important. But I think in general, I think most people know, and I think want to say fighting game developers know what they need. Everything that I could possibly need for getting better should be in training mode. Very detailed character lists, and again, the command list they're doing is actually really great. The fact it's showing you what this move is used for, how you use it, and everything like that. I think that's really good. I think in here, even though the combo challenges would be its own thing, I think you should have, like, in the command list, like, pre-described combos for characters that would be your basic B&B and stuff like that. I think that would be really useful. Very, very useful. Deviating from this to go to replay. All right. Replay. So let's say this is my dream. My dream. If you ever really wanted to make a Guilty Gear game easier, just pick a random play. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to watch it. Let's say this is something I've wanted for so long. Okay. Especially in a Guilty Gear game. Man, I'm going nuts. This game has frame advance. That's nice. I want a super robust replay feature. You should be able to have all of your replays available. You should be able to categorize them into different like folders or whatnot, save them for however long you want. But I think if you were watching a replay and let's say you get bodied by someone and they do a specific setup on you, I would love nothing more than to be able to watch that replay, get to that specific moment, and then press a button and start playing. And be able to loop that specific time frame in that replay over and over and over again, and just keep labbing out how to deal with that situation. Like right now, I should be able to take control of Jam, or May if I want to, and the replay will keep going, and I will just take control. This would allow me to lab out different setups, because the problem with Guilty Gear is that characters are complex. Like, let's say I am going against a Venom. If I want to learn how to deal with that Venom setup, I have to watch the replay, I have to look at everything Venom is doing, I have to write down the moves he's doing. I basically have to learn Venom, learn how to do that setup, and then a month later, I'll finally be able to lab how to deal with that setup. You have to learn a character to learn how to lab their setup, which is a real problem. And God, if they could give this feature in, the level you would improve in this game would be astronomical. In an Oki-based game, like, I don't know how much it'll matter in StrIVe because it has a little less Oki going on, but in this game, God, if Rev 2 had this feature, you would get better so much faster. It would be unreal. It would be unreal how much faster you would get better at the game. I would love nothing more than to have that feature. A really robust replay feature would be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I would love nothing more than to have that. But in general, replay, you should be able to have other people spectate your replays. I remember we used to do that in StarCraft. That was fun. Way back in the day. So that's a good option. And then just a bunch of other fluff options in here. It's great too. But what else? What else can I think of? What else do we need for the perfect game? We're not really talking about gameplay, because the gameplay in general, obviously the gameplay needs to have a high skill floor. But in general, like, you need to teach people as they're playing. Like, if you want a perfect fighting game, if you want to teach, there's this problem that fighting game developers have in terms of, we'll briefly talk about gameplay, I guess, where they think that the game needs to be simple. Hardcore casual players and casual players, well, hardcore casual players don't care how difficult the game is. They just don't. They care if the game is satisfying and fun. And for the most part, that's what most people care about. They don't really care how difficult it is. I think what you need to be doing is teaching people as they play, which, if you do the tutorial that I mentioned, would really help people in terms of teaching them how to play and properly utilize all of the mechanics in the game. But one of the things that you need to be able to do is just teach them as they're playing. Like, you don't have to go start labbing things all the time. Like, if a move is plus on block, have a different type of block stun so that they know, I can't press a button after this. You could be cheap with it and just make it a different colored, like, spark. Instead of having the blue spark when Jam does 6H, change it to, or I guess this would be neutral, so this is plus 0. You should be able, like, this is plus something. This is plus 4, I believe. So this would have a different color spark. Maybe it's like green, or maybe red would be you're at disadvantage, whatever color coordination you want to do. But you could also just do a different animation. Soul Calibur is a good example of a game that Sword does that, but then Sword doesn't sometimes. It's very silly. Yeah, you want to teach players. You really do want to teach players as they're playing, because one of the things, like, if you're trying to get a player who doesn't like learning mechanics to somehow play a game that's all about learning mechanics, they need to be able to do it naturally. They need to be able to learn on their own. And there are players like that. There are pro players who don't really do a lot of labbing, who don't know the frame data. I've fought really good third strike players. They don't know the frame data. They just know this move's punishable. And then that's it. They don't know how punishable it is. They just know that, yeah, when I hit Standing Fierce, it seems to hit, so that's fine. And that's okay. Just teach players. as they play, and they will do a lot better. Oh boy. If they made the perfect fighting game release, that game would sell like hotcakes. The FGC would eat it up. The FGC would eat it up so much. It absolutely would. If that game, it has the potential to be that perfect game. If it can find the perfect balance of high skill ceiling with a high skill floor, with really satisfying gameplay that's fun and skillful, and this is not a gameplay discussion, I'm not going to go into that too much now. But and also do everything else right, just the perfect game, rematch during, rematch after in versus mode, so you don't have to go back to the lobby screen. Every little thing, input viewer, input display, frame data display, hitbox display, really good story mode, really good tutorial, really good everything. Just everything. They would do so fucking well. And it would set a new standard for fighting games as a whole. And if Guilty Gear wants to strive for anything, that's what they need to strive for. I am willing to sacrifice depth of gameplay for them to do everything else completely right. And if they still make a game that's fun, and it still has really good moments, that's the most important thing to me. And we'll go into a gameplay discussion eventually, but God, I want it. It doesn't even have to be Guilty Gear. It's just any game that does that would do so well. So well. Here's hoping.